Hi there, I'm Andrea and welcome to my coaching channel. If you're new here, an extra welcome to you. If you're returning, thanks for coming back. Today, we're going to be continuing our conversation around burnout and how overusing a strength can lead to burnout, but at the same time, how can you use your strengths to overcome it? Today, we are going to talk about empathy, which is a strength and talent theme that lives within the relationship building domain. The relationship building domain strengths are all the ones that will be colored in blue on your strengths report, and they're all about people, nurturers, caring for others. CliftonStrengths defines empathy as a talent where people are able to understand and feel other people's emotions, and so much so that they can actually intuitively understand another person's perspective. Those who lead with empathy are the folks who know how to read the room. They can read another person's emotions and how they're feeling, and even read a situation. Folks who lead with empathy are those who are going to give you a glass of water after you just came home from a hike. This is the person who just knows that you're feeling cold and they're going to hand you a blanket. Empathy is the person who pulls up a chair for you so they can sit down at the dinner table. Another special thing about empathy as a talent is that folks who lead with this talent are able to sit with you during hard times, during joyous times, and not only just sit with you in that emotion and in that feeling, but they also have this innate ability to respond so openly and so genuinely. Somehow they're able to know just the right thing to say in the right tone of voice to comfort the other person. There is actually a Swedish proverb I like to reflect on that I feel really mirrors what empathy is all about. Shared joy is double the joy. Shared sorrow is half the sorrow. I feel like that proverb really encapsulates what empathy is from a strengths perspective, because these are folks who amplify joy, they amplify the light and experiences, and at the same time, they're able to hold space when things get hard and are able to really nurture people wherever they're at on their journey. The word empathy can be thrown around a lot, but honestly, I feel like society has recently been catching up to understanding the full depth of what empathy offers and why empathy is so important. Thanks to sociologists and psychologists like Dr. Brené Brown, a lot of folks have now really abandoned this old narrative and concept that empathy is for really sensitive people, or empathy is a sign of weakness, which is absolutely not true. And I so love and appreciate how CliftonStrengths has really encapsulated empathy and defined it in a way that's really tangible and understandable for others. And when you really think about it, those who lead with empathy and practice empathy, these are the folks we need the most, especially in a world full of hurt and pain and a lot of darkness at times. And speaking of hurt, sometimes those who lead with empathy are so concerned about other people's needs and other people's feelings that they actually might lose themselves and their own emotions in the process. And of course, that leads to burnout. In the corporate world, especially in industries that call upon empathy, like the medical field, social work, and education, folks who work in those areas might experience something called compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue is when someone is supporting someone else through a traumatic or serious event. That person who is in the helping side of the situation pours all of their love and care into the person who needs support, that by the end of the workday or end of the shift, that person now is experiencing compassion fatigue because all of their emotion and all of their energy went towards the person who needed the most help that day. When you use your own emotions to relate to others and help others, you might not even realize that your own emotional fuel tank is running low on empty because you're mirroring your own emotions with others. And so sometimes it can be really hard to prevent this sort of burnout because you feel so in tune with those you are trying to help. Here are a few ways of how burnout might show up with someone who leads with empathy. It may show up as someone who is feeling exhausted, both emotionally and physically. It may even show up as isolation. Folks who lead with empathy who are experiencing burnout might actually isolate themselves. They might actually withdraw themselves from activities or experiences that usually bring them joy, that usually they love to do, but they just don't even have enough energy for themselves to participate in it. Burnout might also show up in a way where perhaps this person's still going to work, doing their daily activities, but they feel a little muted. They're not as colorful. They might act almost like a zombie because they're so just numbed out. They're functional, they're doing all the things they need to do, but they're not as lively or as engaged with a sense of purpose and intention. You definitely know that someone who leads with empathy is experiencing burnout when they themselves can't even communicate how they are feeling. Because think about it, those who lead with empathy are so naturally gifted at sharing emotions, expressing themselves, finding the right words to express how someone's feeling or how they're feeling. And so when someone with that strength is in a burnout stage, they're all of a sudden at loss for words. They don't know how they're feeling. They don't know how to describe what's going on in their mind and in their heart and in their soul. That's definitely a big flag in understanding that someone might be experiencing burnout. I know so far I've been sharing experiences of burnout from negative experience to a negative output, but sometimes those who lead with empathy can actually experience burnout even after a positive event. For example, let's say you are attending a large social event like a wedding, a birthday party, or reunion. Someone who leads with empathy is going to be, of course, enjoying themselves at said social event, but imagine that they are using their emotional energy for this long, extended period of time, connecting with others, hearing how other people are doing, getting life updates, so on and so forth. And so imagine they're attending this 4, 5, 8+ hour social event, and then on their way home, all of a sudden, someone who leads with empathy might be feeling exhausted, drained, and burnt out. And that feeling might actually lead to sadness. And this has actually come up with a few clients I've been working with, where after this large, beautiful, wondrous, enjoyable event happens, all of a sudden it's met with this sharp decline of some sort of sadness. And it seems out of nowhere. But for those who lead with empathy, it's actually really a telling sign of how much you've used your energy at this party, at the social event, and then all of a sudden that stark contrast between a social event and you being alone brings your emotional energy all the way down. And that contrast can be really shocking for someone who leads with empathy, someone who relies on emotions in others to really make connections. Now, let's talk about a few ways we can overcome burnout with those who lead with empathy. Let's go back to that example of the large social event. And so imagine you're attending this event and you lead with empathy. Something that can help you overcome burnout from the situation and actually prevent burnout from such a high social event is actually taking a little time to plan ahead. Think about, cool, I'm going to get to this party. Let me engage with as many people as I can, and maybe halfway through, let me stick with one group. And then maybe have an intentional plan for an after party. Maybe you and your closest friends are gonna go to ice cream, and then you go home for the night. Or maybe you share a Lyft or Uber drive with someone on the way home. I like to call this emotional scaffolding. How are you starting large with meeting folks, enjoying the party, but then slowly just being more and more and more intentional with yourself and more intentional with your energy and how you're using your emotional energy to connect with others. This emotional scaffolding is going to help you better pace your emotional energy and also ensure that you're still having intentional connections without hurting or harming yourself and ultimately preventing burnout. Especially for those who lead with empathy, you definitely know that emotions demand to be felt. And that is so important for those who lead with empathy to give themselves a chance to express their own emotions. Especially on the corporate side, if you experience compassion fatigue through your work and your industry, it's so important to dedicate intentional time for yourself to express your own emotions, express what's going on in your mind and in your life. If you are experiencing compassion fatigue from work or experiencing burnout from overexercising your empathy strengths, here are a few questions to reset and reground yourself. 1. Have you drank water recently? If not, go ahead and get a sip of that drink of water from a water bottle. 2. Have you eaten anything at all today? It is so easy to skip breakfast and just work through lunch, but making sure you're feeling fueled is so important to ensure you have the full capacity of your mind, your body, and of course, your heart and your emotions. 3. Have you gone outside today? Especially for those of us who are working from home, it's pretty easy to stay in the shadow and not really even feel the sunlight on your beautiful skin. Take a moment to step outside, feel the sunshine, go visit nature, walk to a park. It's going to help immensely. 4. Can I do something in this moment that brings me joy? And 5, but never least, have you spoken to anyone today? And I know all these questions sound very fundamental and obvious, but it's not obvious, especially in a society and world where we're always working, in that hustle and that grind. Maybe you have family members you're taking care of. It can be so easy to forget and lose yourself. And speaking of foundational, these are critical in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's a reason why there are so many layers on the pyramid before someone gets to self-actualization. It's so important to take care of yourselves in these ways, especially if you're someone in the service field, especially for someone who is a social worker, a therapist, an educator, works in medicine. You have to prioritize yourself, especially in a job that's so demanding for you to show up when others are at their most vulnerable state. Notice how these questions are not, am I thirsty? Am I hungry? Am I lonely? Because if you're someone who leads with empathy and you're overusing your empathy, you might not even realize what you're feeling. So when you reframe these questions as actions, relying on your executing themes and strengths, you're able to help yourself in the physical world much more easier when our actions and questions are actually tangible. Did I eat something? Did I drink water? Right? Those are more action-oriented, something you can respond to more quickly. Because again, if you're overusing your empathy so much, you might not have that emotional awareness for yourself anymore. So these powerful reframes of questions allows you to easily move into a form of action instead of just staying stagnant in your current state of burnout. Another way to overcome burnout from overusing your empathy strength is intentionally planning breaks for yourself. Whether it's breaks at work, breaks at home, maybe you are a full-time parent, maybe you're a parent and working from home, whatever it is, if you find yourself in a place of constantly serving and caring for other people, it is so critical that you set some time for yourself to do what you love to do, to take care of yourself, to prioritize yourself in your day or your week. This could look like a consistent Thursday morning where you go out and treat yourself to a nice bagel or breakfast or coffee. You have your own special time in the morning. Or maybe it's at work and you block your calendar. Make sure you have control of your calendar, not that your calendar has control of you. And you pick some days that you entirely block out so that you can, one, of course, take a break, and two, prioritize what you need to do at work and prioritize the meetings that really matter. And here's a reminder for everyone out there who currently holds a job. Take your PTO, use your paid time off. Time is always going to continue. There's always going to be work to be done. There's always going to be time for that project. But time moves so quickly. Please take care of yourself, have fun with your friends and family, and take that paid time off. You've literally earned it. You deserve it. Go use it. Another way to overcome burnout for those who lead with empathy is through self-expression. This could be journaling, therapy for yourself, or even body movement. Allowing yourself to express yourself freely will help free up your mind and your own emotions, and even help you let go of the emotions you might be holding on to that actually don't belong to you, especially for those who are in service and care for others, whether that's in your personal life or at work. A few strategies that could be helpful is when you're journaling, when you write down those thoughts and ideas from other experiences you've had, from other emotions of other people, physically writing it down allows you to make it tangible, and that experience of having that emotion physically leave your body and land on paper or digital paper like an iPad can be just enough psychologically to help you in that letting go process. Speaking of body movement, something that can really help with someone who leads with empathy is different types of sensory therapy. Maybe it's walking outside barefoot for a little bit and literally feeling nature. Maybe if you have access to a lake or a pool, just float around. That different physical sensations can actually help you feel more grounded and allow your mind to really empty itself out or feel a more natural state of being without being held up by so many of your own emotions and the emotions of others that you're carrying with you. So tell me, what do you think? Does any of this sound like you? Have you experienced burnout in this way by using your empathy? Let me know in the comments below, and I'd love to learn and hear from you. If you found this content helpful, please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future videos about burnout and other topics coming along the way. If you are curious about what your own strengths are, or if you're experiencing burnout and would like some support, go ahead and reach out to me in my website down below. I would love to support you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in our next video.